you again.
So we have you on the show because you've done some studies and you have some experience in trying to figure out why somebody would do this, and you've studied some of these mass shootings. What have you found out?
Well, first off, what we are seeing is that over the past 3 years, we are experiencing an increase in mass casualty attacks. Some of these attacks are being committed by people who connect with extremist or terrorist or other ideological causes, and in other cases, it is individuals who formulate within their mind some grievance, see themselves as the victim of the grievance, and then turn to mass murder in furtherance of the grievance. Across the board, motivationally, what we are seeing that these shooters all share common psychological or behavioral characteristics, which is important to know because that helps law enforcement prevent future attacks.
Is there a copycat formula to this? Because 30 years ago this never happened, and now you're saying they're moving at a much faster pace. There's got to be some copycat element to this.
Well, what we're seeing is that social media and the internet play a big role. In many cases, the cause or the grievance that the shooter connects with is brought to the shooter's attention by their excessive use of social media and the internet. They prepare for the attacks on social media using social media and the internet. But to your point, what we're also seeing is that they study past attacks. And in a sense, in their mind, they form the idea that they are going to surpass the results of past attacks. So if you take the Newtown shooting, for example, Adam Lanza, he studied past attacks, and in his mind, he wanted to exceed the casualty account of previous attacks.
I want to go back to what you said. You're saying I want to make sure I understand you correctly. Social media is helping to fuel some of this?
Yeah, absolutely. It not only fuels, but it also forewarns. So in many cases, we are finding, or actually in most cases, we are finding that these individuals spend excessive amounts of time on the internet, using social media, viewing extremist or violent material that are posted on internet chat rooms and on certain social media sites. We also are seeing that as these individuals are getting closer and closer to conducting the attack, they are sending out messages via social media that may actually forewarn of the upcoming violent attack. Now, we don't know if that's the case in this situation,
right.
And we'll wait to hear what investigators have to say, but overwhelmingly, in the cases that we've studied, this is what happens.
So in a sense, they're almost getting verification from others online that somehow this is acceptable for what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely right. And particularly in the case of individuals who connect with some extremist cause, whether it be, a white supremacist cause or the cause of a group like ISIS or Al-Qaeda, in years past, these people tended to be isolated geographically. Now with social media and the internet, they connect with people around the world, and that serves to validate these feelings and their connection with the cause. But what it also does is that it opens the door for them to obtain information that helps them conduct an attack. So it wouldn't surprise me in this case, even if this person was not an avid user of social media and he didn't have a big social media footprint. You hear people asking questions, well, how do you learn how to make a weapon automatic? How do you learn these military tactics? You go to the internet.
Yeah. It's also interesting that even though people look at whether it's a domestic terrorist or a quote-unquote foreign terrorist, they all have their own political points of view, and they all go to their political corners. But listening to you, it sounds like it's the same side of the coin. They just get to it differently.
Yeah, so the phrase we're starting to use in law enforcement is it's not the ideology, it's the psychology. What's consistent about these people, or what's consistent amongst these people, is they have very common psychological or behavioral characteristics. These are people who come from dysfunctional families. These are people who have experienced a series of life failures. These are people who are looking for a sense of connection. These are people who have difficulty in forming relationships with people. These are people who are becoming increasingly angry because they feel like they've been victimized. We've seen this, again, regardless of what the motivation, the actual motive behind the attack was, we are seeing these characteristics in most of these attackers, and we're already beginning to see information that is somewhat consistent with this individual.
You're also saying stay tuned because more is coming.
More is coming, and to be perfectly frank, we need to think differently about how we prevent these types of attacks, and we need to think differently from a government perspective about the types of efforts that we support. Law enforcement needs to change the way they evaluate potential threats, and we need to work more closely with the community so people understand what are the troubling signs that they need to be aware of, and who should they report those to so we can take action.
John Cohn, ABC News consultant. Great stuff. Thanks for checking in.